Yes, good evening. So, welcoming you all for this fire and safety management. This will be on the today's topic. So, hereby we'll be discussing everything more about fire and safety management. So, let's getting on to the topic. So, let's begin with the definition of an combustion. Because if you wanted to know more about fire, we want to know about what is a combustion. Combustion is actually a chain reaction between a fuel and an oxidizing agent, usually an oxygen. So this reaction releases the heat and often the light, which we see as a flame or the glowing effect. This is the process behind almost every fire. And it's important to note that combustion can occur rapidly, like in blaze, or more slowly, such as smoldering materials. So we don't want to panic about the word called smoldering material. Smoldering refers to somewhat like slow or flameless form of combustion. It happens when a material like wood or fabric or coal burns. It's not actually a flame or a fire. It's something called as a mid flame. So in the fire safety terms, smoldering is dangerous because it can go unnoticed for a longer time, especially in the hidden areas like inside walls or furnitures or in between or bunkered or not visible areas. So, for example, a cigarette dropped on a couch without with a flame on the cigarette may cause an smolder for hours before bursting into the flames. So, before going into this fire triangle, the three essential elements now for combustion to actually occur, three key elements must be present. So, we call this as a fire triangle, and this includes fuel. Fuel is this is any material that can burn. It can be of in the form of fluid or in the form of solid, whatever it could be. It's a fuel which makes you to burn. It could be of paper, wood, oil, gas, plastic, pretty much anything combustible. So when we go for an oxygen, it is typically from an air which consists of 21% of oxygen. More fire at least needs 16% of the oxygen to keep burning. So actually in our atmosphere there are 21% of oxygen. Most of the nitrogen is present, and carbon dioxide of 4%, and rest of the other gases like neon, etc. In our atmosphere we have a 21% of oxygen, whereas even 16% of the oxygen will make a fire to burn more. When it comes to heat, this is an ignition source. It could be match, a spark, a hot surface, anything that can raise the fuel to its ignition temperature. So without one of these elements, combustion won't start, or if in the case of fire has already started, it won't continue. So combustion process in fire, how combustion happens? Let's go through this process step by step. First, the fuel is exposed to heat, then it raises its temperature gradually. Once the fuel has reached its ignition temperature, it starts to react with the oxygen in the air. This reaction is what we call exothermic. It releases the heat and the light. And then last, we are going with the heat that keeps the process going. That's why fire, once started, often grows rapidly if nothing interrupts it. So essentially, fire feeds itself as long as it has enough heat or fuel or oxygen. Why this matters in the fire safety is that, so why do we need to know all this? Just because understanding combustion helps us to prevent fire before if it even started. It also guides us in choosing the right extinguisher or the suppression method. For example, we might cool the heat using the water, cut off the oxygen using foam or CO2, or remove the fuel by isolating the source. It also helps the fire investigations know why and how a fire starts, allow us to improve the safety measures for the future. So moving on to the next slide, we have a fire triangle over here, which discusses about the heat, oxygen, and the fuel. So it's like if these three things are there, we cannot able to prevent the fire which has been occurring as an incident or as an accident. So in this case, if you are removing the heat out of this triangle, or fuel out of this triangle, or oxygen out of this triangle, you are free from the fire. So fuel, as mentioned earlier, it's whatever it could be, it as an burnable material. Let's start the first element of the first fire triangle: fuel. Fuel refers to any combustion substance that can undergo a chemical reaction and releases the energy in the form of heat or the light. It serves as a primary source of an energy that powers the combustion process. Like fuel can exist in the solid or liquid or any of the gaseous form that behaves differently when ignited. Solid fuels like wood, pepper, or your coal, anything matters. When it comes to liquid, your gasoline means like your petrol, your kerosene, diesel, whatever can happen. And when it comes to gaseous fuel, it is like propane, methane, butane, and your LPG, CNG, even that matters. For combustion to occur, the fuel must be present in the form and condition that allows it to interact with the oxygen and the heat. This is why we often refer to the state of the fuel, such as whether it is vaporized or finely divided, because that affects how it easily ignites. If the fuel is removed or consumed during the fire, the reaction stops out over there with that. Therefore, controlling or isolating the fuel source is one of the most common firefighting strategies. Removing the fuel is one of the most important matters here. When it comes to heat, the second component of the fire triangle, heat provides the initial energy needed to start the combustion process. Specifically, it raises the temperature of fuel to its ignition temperature. So actually, fuel is one of the important most factor here. When the fuel, you have a burning fuel or burning material over there, it raises the heat at the point in which the fuel begins to react chemically with the oxygen. So there are many sources of heat that can trigger a fire. This includes like open flames or electric sparks or any other hot surfaces. Like even your power bank could able to make a fire. Power bank, when it is power bank, or your mobile phones, when it heated more than to the certain temperature, it could able to make a fire. So that there all the possibilities are there. Once the fire has started, it generates its own heat, which continues to ignite adjacent fuel and maintain the combustion cycle. This is one of the most dangerous aspects of uncontrolled fires. So that's why cooling with the water is such common firefighting. If in the case of when you are taking it as for heat, so oxygen, even fuel and heat are the visible one, but oxygen is an invisible sustainer. The third essential element in the fire triangle is an oxygen. Oxygen acts as an oxidizing agent that supports a fire to grow more than the normal. So as I said earlier, our atmosphere consists of 21% of oxygen, whereas even 16% of oxygen is enough for the fuel or fire to grow more. So the role of the oxygen is to combine chemically with the fuel during the combustion, resulting in the formatting of heat, light, or smoke. Firefighters often target the oxygen supply as meant to extinguish the fire with blanketing with foam or applying carbon dioxide in order to reduce the oxygen, or smoothing with the fire blankets or with the sand. So fire tetrahedron is an advanced version of fire triangle. Here we have an extra component which is called as an chemical chain reaction. Other remains the same, like heat, fuel, and oxygen remains the same. This model adds a fourth critical element to the understanding of the fire behavior, the chemical chain reaction. In So what that's chemical chain reaction or a fire tetrahedron exactly means is that during combustion, a series of chemical reaction occurs to the molecular level. This reaction produces free radicals, high reactive atoms or molecules, which could able to increase your fire in a loop format. Why tetrahedron matters in fire safety is that it also includes the advanced firefighting technologies. aimed not just to remove the heat or oxygen or your fuel, but disrupting the chemical reaction totally in order to stop all this three heat, fuel, or oxygen at the same time. For example, for instance, dry chemical extinguishers like mono ammonium phosphate or sodium bicarbonate work by inhibiting the chain chemical reaction. So it's important to prevent the chain chemical reaction in order to stop all the other three. There's three instead of like in the previous triangle we spoke about how to prevent this heat or fuel or oxygen separately each other. But if in the case of chemical chain reaction, if you're going through that, you need not to stop separately like heat, fuel, or oxygen. Just by stopping the chemical chain reaction, all the three will get into the control. So let's get back to a bit of 12th standard, like schooling science. What is conduction, convection, or radiation, which could able to let us know how the fire are being spreaded, how and what does these all these three like conduction, convection, and radiation matters in the case of fires. So fire spread by the conduction. Conduction is a process in which the heat travels through only through the solid materials. When two materials are in the physical direct contact, heat energy can move further from the hotter objects to the cooler one. In the fire scenarios, this means a heated metal beam or pipe can conduct the heat to other part of the structures, even that is not going to occur any of the fire. So fire spread by the convection. Convection is a process which involves the transfer of heat through fluids. Conduction, which is a absolutely which matters with the solids. Here, convection is related with the fluids. In buildings like stairwells, staircases, elevators can act as a convection materials, allowing the hot gases to spread the fire quickly between the floors. So, what is then fire spread by radiation? So, just getting on to the radiation. Radiation is the process by which the heat travels in the form of the electromagnetic waves. Where we spoke about fluids, conduction is about solids, convection is about fluids, which could be of in the solid form, solid or fluid forms. So this is about the radiation which caused due to an electromagnetic waves. For instance, fire burning in one building can radiate enough heat to ignite the neighboring structures across the streets, because normally a um, paint what we paint for our buildings is consist of an ethanol, so that your fire could able to transfer this to the next building easily with the place of radiation. So fire spread by direct flame contact. This is a direct contact, not with the solids or not with either with fluids or with the radiation materials. This is something about like direct flame contact. Like if you are taking the both the matchsticks together, it will cause on fire to the next matchsticks, or else the lighter intact with the heat things, it will cause on fire. So here we going with an classification of fire. In fire and safety management, fire are categorized based on these types of fires. This classification helps us to determine what are the appropriate extinguishing agents to be used, because the wrong word could worsen the situation even more you could ever imagine. Like exploring the five main classes of fire recognized in the most of the global standard safety standards. So this is all the only the uh, fundamental basic five. There are still more like F class fire and E class fire, F class fire. There are more than this, but these are the main basic common things. When you are getting onto the class A, it is an ordinary combustibles. So ordinary combustible, which includes the wood, paper, cloth, rubber, and many other plastics. So these materials leaves the ash when they burn. So fires in this class are most common in the homes and the office. So for this extinguishing method, you have to use the water only with the water, the foam extinguishers, which work by cooling the burning material and soaking it, cutting off the heat and the oxygen. For instance, burning a pile of paper in an office or the fire in the wooden furnitures, you could able to use a class A fire, which is on water or the foam. You could able to extinguish with the class A fire. When it comes to the class B, like flammable liquids and gases, which involves your gasoline, your kerosene, or your alcohol, ethanol, oil-based paints, LPGs. This all includes on Class B. This fire don't leave the solid residues like same like in Class A, they leave the ash behind. So they don't leave any solid residues, so they can spread rapidly, and it's an unimaginable in the case of spreading. So we can use the foam or carbon dioxide or dry chemical powder extinguishers. These agents act as an smoothing the fire and interrupting the chemical chain reaction. So importantly, what we have to note is that when we are using Class A fire, we should not use that for Class B unless or until what is the fire which has been occurred. Like if in the case of only if you know that it's a furniture fire or else your normal fire, you can use the Class A. Until or unless if you are going with the electrical fires or flammable liquid or gas, if you use the foam or water, it would increase the fire. So that be precise when you are using the extinguishers in this thing. When it comes to Class C, it's an electrical fire. Live electrical equipment such as panels, circuit breakers, or any other short circuits, wiring or appliances, your circuit breakers, whatever could be of, it is considered as an electrical fire. So these fire invoke an energized electrical sources. These could electrocution the risk. So safety is critical bit in this. So use the carbon dioxide or dry powder extinguishers, both in which it is a non-conductive and safe around the live electricity. This is the case where you should not use the class A fire extinguishers, because class A fire extinguishers consist of water or foam, which could able to increase the electrical fire. When it comes to Class D, combustible materials, reactive materials like metals like magnesium, sodium, potassium. So these are the materials like normal materials, chemicals which comes under the metal combustion materials. So these metals can burn at an extremely high temperatures. So it is not much riskier, but still they might react violent with the water and even some regular extinguishers. So use the specialized dry powders extinguishers designed for only for metal fires, often graphite or sodium chloride based. Sometimes sand is also used in the industrial settings. So let's move on to Class K. Primary, it's an Class K, or in the case of Class F. So these are the things caused due to vegetable oils or animal fats, typically in the commercial kitchens, deep fires, or meat shop, or wherever it is. Fire in this class burns at the very high temperatures. They can easily reignite if not properly extinguished. So use the chemical extinguishers that react with the oil to form a soapy form layers. This cools the oil and seals up the oxygen. So same like already mentioned, never use water if in the case of class F or class C or class B. It can could cause an explosive splattering of the oil. So with this usage of extinguishers, fire extinguishers, even in your office or your workspace, wherever you see, in your fire extinguishers, a small cylinder will be consisting of the this symbols, like whether it is a class A or class B or class C, that indicates like where this fire extinguisher should be used appropriately. So use it wisely to in order to avoid the further more risk of the fire. So moving on to the next slide, fire extinguishing methods. So far we have seen about fire extinguishing agents. Here we are going with the fire extinguishing methods. In fire safety management, effective fire suppression depends on understanding how to interpret the fire sustaining elements. As we discussed earlier, fire needs fuel, heat, oxygen, or the chemical reaction to continue. So, in order to extinguish the fire, we use the four main strategies, each aimed at disrupting one of these essential components. Cooling. First one is cooling. When it comes to cooling, it removes the heat which could be used for a Class A fire. So to lower down the temperature of the burning materials below to its ignition point. So how it is works is that The most common cooling method in the is application of water. Water absorbs the heat rapidly and reduces the material's temperature. It is primarily used for class A fire involving the solid combustions like wood, paper, and the textiles. So when you are moving with the smoothering here we are removing the oxygen. That is the next element of the fire tetrahedron. So objective is to cut off the oxygen supply, preventing from fire from breathing or exclusively moving more further. It is basically used for Class B, Class C, Class K fires, which is of flammable liquids, electrical fires, or cooking oils and the fats. So removing oxygen matters in this. So for this, better you can use the CO2 carbon dioxide extinguishers to remove the oxygen out of the fire triangle. Next comes the starvation, removing the fuel, cutting off the fuel supply. By physically removing the combustion materials or cutting off the supply line of flammable gases or liquids. This is applicable basically for all the types of the class of fires. So example, shutting off the gas valves if in the case of the leak, or clearly clearing the flammable materials from the vicinity of the fire, creating fire breaks during the forest fires. So next is the fourth thing, we are preventing the chain reaction inhibitor. So object is to disrupt the chemical chain reaction that sustains the combustion at the molecular level. So certainly agents like breaks the chemical cycle required for the fire propagation. Especially it is used for class B liquid fires and class C electrical fires. So examples like dry chemical powders or halon extinguishers are now being used, but halon extinguishers are not being used mostly because now largely used due to the environmental impact. Because the halon extinguishers uh, concerns with the ozone depletion. So next comes your isolation and containment, preventing the fire and the spread to avoid the direct contact. To prevent the fire from the spreading to surrounding areas directly, thereby limiting the damage and providing time for extinguishing. So this method doesn't extinguish the fire directly, but it plays a crucial role in controlling and confining it. It involves the use of barriers to stop from the fire from accessing more fuel or reaching to the critical zones. When it goes to like chemical special extinguishing, like targeted fire suppression, this is used to specially formulated extinguishing agents designed for unique or hazard fire types. These agents are designed to react with a specific fuel type, either by smoothing, cooling, or chemically altering by the combustion process. This is used for Class D fires using sodium chloride powder, or else the Class D fire suppressant like graphite-based powders. So moving on to the types of fire extinguishing agents: water, foam, dry powder, CO2, wet chemicals. So let's look on to this depthly. So when it comes to water-based extinguishers, application is mainly for the Class A fires involving the ordinary combustion materials such as paper wood. It cools the burning material, absorbs the heat effectively. When it comes to foam extinguishers, suitable for both Class A and Class B fires, especially like these slides is basically a consolidated form of your classes of fire where to use which extinguishing agents. Suitable for both foam is suitable for both Class A and Class B fires, especially on flammable liquids like petrol, diesel, or any other solvents. Even same like water, your foam is also not suitable for your electrical fires or metal fires. Next comes your dry powder extinguishers, ABC type, which is normally it is used in all the building. Yes. So when it comes to dry powder extinguishers, ABC fires, which is normally used in our buildings, which is in your workspace or your offices, you could able to see this dry powders, which is suitable for all the A, B, C fires, which is of flammable gases. But sometimes it is also specialized for Class D fires with the metal specific powders like such as carbon. So it actually interrupts the chemical chain reaction in the combustion process, smooths the fires, and separates the fuel from the oxygen. When it comes to your carbon dioxide extinguishers, effective on the Class B fire especially, and sometimes on Class C fires as well. So it effectively displaces an oxygen in the surrounding area, leaves no residue, making it an ideal for the electrical rooms, server racks, and your sensitive electronical parts. But especially it is not suitable for outdoor fires or direct fires, or if in the case of your Class A fires, ineffective in the cooling. So next comes your wet chemical extinguisher. So this is specially designed for Class K or Class F fires involving cooking oil and fats common in the commercial kitchens. So it reacts with the oil in order to keep it as a soap-like form, which cools and smoothens the fire, also prevents the reignition, which in the case of like Class K or Class F fire, it could able to reignite sooner if in the case of it is not extinguished properly. So next comes your fire alarming systems. What are the fire alarming systems? You do see, like we will be discussing three fire alarming systems. One is MCP, which is called as a manual call point, your fire alarm, and your automatic fire alarm. So let's getting on to the point. First is MCP, which is also known as a manual call point, that allows the individual to trigger the alarm in the event of the fire emergency before the automatic smoke detectors or any other automatic fire alarms get noticed, because it could even you could be seeing this in the malls or your workspace, your offices, anywhere else. Like there will be a red color box, small box, which will be with a glass. It is with the mention like break if in the case of fire. So break the glass, then switch on the responder in order to make it to notification to fire alarm control panel. It will be available in your office. They have an fire alarm control panel, which is normally called as an FACP. So it will be notified over there before the automatic smoke detectors find it. So purpose is to mainly to manually ignite in fire alarm, ensure early warning even the detectors may not have activated. Critical in the situations when the fire or smoke is visible or suspected before the sensors detected. So let's move on to working principle. Let's walk through how MCP works step by step. First is your activation. The user presses or breaks the glass panel depending on the type. Next is your signal transmission. This action completes the circuit or send the signal. Communication with the control panel, your MCP sends the signal to the fire alarm control panel, which is FACP. Then alarm activation. The control panel activates audible and visual alarms such as sirens, strobes, or emergency lightings. When it comes to emergency response, action begins. Following the alarm, evacuation protocols are triggered. Your mock drills are been should be conducted in your office in order to know where is the emergency exits are being held, and your fire response teams are alerted for the further actions. So mainly this should be installed at the exits, corridors, and near to the fire prone areas. It should be mounted at visible and accessible area, usually a man's height where they could able to access it normally. Should not obstructed by the furnitures or doors or partisans where it could able to hide the vision of this MCP. Moving on to fire alarm, this is a life safety alert system which is designed to detect and respond to fire or smoke by producing the audible or visual warnings. So the main purpose of this fire alarm is to alert the building occupants or a fire emergency enabled fire evacuation. So when moving on to this working principle, they have the automatic detectors. They are trigged by one is automatic detectors or by even by MCPs. Your automatic detectors includes your it could detect by smoke, heat, or any of the flame sensors. Then signal transmission signal is sent to the FACP. System response by FACP process the signal and initiates the audible alarms such as sirens, horns, or bells. Visual alerts like strobe lights or your flashing indicators such as like SOS normally you do have in your offices. Fire alarm also may triggers to voice evacuation announcement, automatic door release mechanism, elevator recalls, your smoke control or ventilation systems, emergency lighting. This is next is something different from all the other two. This is something called as automatic fire alarm in fire alarm system. Like this, most prominently, you will be looking onto this in the malls or any other such huge buildings, whereas the smoke detectors look into uh, the fire or heat or any of the smoke. So it automatically influences the sprinkler to have a fire extinguishing agents. So an automatic fire alarm system is a self-activating fire detection system that identifies like fire-related hazards such as smoke, heat, or any other flames. So main purpose is to detect the fire at the earliest stage as possible to alert the building occupants automatically. This also includes your stomps, your sounds, your sirens, your visual things like SOS lights. Even this also includes, but without any other manual activating, it automatically activates with the help of the smoke detectors. Next, we are moving to the fire hydrants. You could have seen this image as it is there here. You could have seen this mostly in your offices or in your workspace. So let's begin with a simple definition. Fire hydrant is a crucial firefighting installation that provides immediate access to a pressurized water supply during the fire emergencies. This is mostly designed for the firefighters to quickly connect the hoses and to begin the extinguishing fires. In short, it's like it acts as a direct link between the dedicated water system and the fire scene. Here, why do we need the fire hydrants? Now, you might ask, why do we need fire hydrants, or why fire hydrants are more important when we have an fire extinguishers all at workspace. The main purpose of this fire hydrant is to ensure that the firefighters have the dependable and high pressure water sources during the emergency times. So it's unlike fire extinguishers or tanks, hydrants draw from continuous water supply, meaning that they can be used to fight even the large scale fires without running out. So just for your information, let's look on how the fire hydrants works. Fire hydrants are connected to the underground or overhead pressurized water pipelines. When the firefighters arrive, they use the special hydrant wrench to open the hydrant wall. Once it is opened, the hose which is being shown here is been connected to the hydrant. Then they uses the high pressure water to prevent the fire to not getting directly contacted with the other buildings, or else they use the high pressure water towards the fire using the nozzles. So in many urban areas, hydrants are spaced systematically to ensure quick access in case of any neighborhood. So let's look on to the advantage. You don't want any if in the case of your fire extinguishers could not able to make it, or your fire engines could not able to make into that particular place, your fire hydrants gets on to the work. So it's ensures the immediate water availability, quick and easy connection, supports the multiple hoses at once, reduces the emergency response time. Because the hydrants are installed in predetermined and visible locations, firefighters can locate and use them without any delay. If in the case of unlimited supply, under ideal conditions, as long as the water main is function. Hydrants can deliver non-stop water flow, not like your fire extinguishers or your fire engines. They could able to provide you only the particular amount of water or your extinguishing agents. Unlike those, your fire hydrants gives you the non-stoppable water until the fire comes into the control. Usually, the where fire hydrants are found in the place of corner to the public streets where anyone could able to access it or anyone could able to find it easier. Industrial complexes, school campuses, airports, and hospitals. So even in the case of high-rise buildings. So even same like fire extinguishing agents, we have the types of fire hydrants here. One is a wet barrel hydrant, dry barrel hydrant, underground hydrant, and filler hydrant. So let's get on to deeply one by one. Let's begin with wet barrel hydrant. So this type of hydrant is primarily used in warm climates where there is no risk of freezing. Water is always present in the barrel of the hydrant. So I'll explain this wet barrel and dry barrel later in the next slide with the image shown. So now let's move on to this underground hydrant, which is less visible but widely used in the specific applications. It is installed below the ground level, often accessed via hydrant pit or covered chamber. So it is not visible much. When you require it, you could able to access it where it is available. Because it is undergrounded, it offers better protection from the vandalism, traffic accidents, or any other environmental exposures. It is commonly used in the airports or any other urban areas or historical zones where it is not it, to prevent the traffic or accidents when it is in the visible areas. Next is your pillar hydrant. Same like unlike the same like underground hydrant, it is above to the ground level. It features a tall, visible design, usually painted in the red or yellow for visibility. These are frequently found in industrial estates, urban zones, and airports. It can be wet or dry depending on the climate zone. So here I'll be explaining about the dry barrel hydrant and wet barrel hydrant. So this is how the inside mechanism looks like in dry barrel and wet barrel. First, we'll be moving to dry barrel. So dry barrel is actually designed for cold climates, especially where the freezing temperatures are common. The barrel remains empty. As you could see, there is no water is available. Only in the underground the water would be available. One until or unless your stem nut is being opened from the top, your water comes into the your hydrant, then it gets through the hoses. Because if in the case of like cooler climates or freezing climates, if the water is above to this hydrant, the environment climate could able to make the hydrant or the water the freeze. So it is typically in the underground. When you open this, your wall gets open and the water comes through the stem. But wet barrel, always your water will be available there. Once you move this operating stem out, your through this hose, your water comes out. So water will be available in this. So water won't be available. This is basically located underground. Once until or unless it is required, water won't come out to the stem to prevent the freezing of the water. So next, moving on to PPE for fire safety. What does PPE means to its personal protective equipment. So generally, we could able to call our mask or your helmets, whatever you wear for wear while you are driving. Even that is also considered as an PPE because that is your personal protective equipment. When in the case of driving, your helmet is your
Hmm.
PPE. If in the
Three,
case of like
6, 3, 2, 9, 5,
yes sir,
9.
sir, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. So when it comes to PPE for the fire safety. Whether you are a firefighter or safety officer or industrial worker, PP is the first and last line of the defense between you and your hazardous environment. So, by the way, what does PPE means to is that it's a range of clothing or a specialized gear want to protect the individual from the fire hazard, extremely hot, extremely heat situations, or your toxic gases and your medical injuries. So, PPE is not just a set of the tool. It's carefully engineered protective system that enables you to perform safely in high risk situations where every seconds you are count. So main objective of the PPE in the fire related operations is that main purpose is to reduce the person's exposure directly towards toxic gases, or you are exposing yourself to the fire or your workplace hazards things. So in fire related environment, hazards can include your higher temperature, falling debris, your electric shock or toxic fumes, explosions, whatever it is, your PPE helps you from this. So without PPE, no firefighting or emergency operation should ever begin. So why PPE is so important in fire safety is that let's break it out on the four main reasons. So it protects from protection from the burns, heat, and toxic inhalation. In fire, the most immediate threats are like thermal burns, like heat burns, heat exhaustion, or else a smoke or gas inhalation. PP components like fire resistant suits, helmets, face shields. We'll be discussing it more further in the next slide. But still, these are the PP components will be used like fire resistant suits, helmets, and self-constrained breathing apparatus, which is normally called as SCBA, which acts as a barrier against these hazards. So PP saves the life not only in the moment but also in the long term. Repeated exposure to smoke or chemical can cause your lung damage, heart diseases, or else your cancer. So usage of PPE is mandatory in all the places. Statistically, like it shows that proper functioning of PPE can reduce the fire-related injuries and deaths by 50% in structure environment. So these are your PPE items where it is used. These are your PPE items. I'll explain you one by one. When it comes to fire emergencies, wearing right protective equipment can mean a difference between life and the death. So let's walk through the essential PPE items used in the firefighting and the rescue operations and understand what role each one plays in the protecting the responder. So first is your firefighter suit, which is also called as bunkered gear. This is a primary suit worn by firefighters. This is flame and heat resistance, which is made of specialized materials, especially designed to protect the entire body from higher temperatures, steams, and hot debris. It insulates a body, allowing the free fighters to get close to the fire without getting any burns or without getting any of the flame into them directly. Next is your helmet. Helmet is just not only the hard hat for you; it's always a lifesaver. It protects the head from falling objects, shields from radiant heat and impact, often includes on chin trap, face shield, and neck cover. Next, when it comes to fire gloves, these are the flame flame resistant and heat insulated gloves designed to protect the hands, especially to prevent the cut, punctures, and abrasion into your hands. Your fire boots are also insulated. It's a steel toe boots made for the rugged use. Like it protects against the heat, sharp objects, and water. It has ankle support and the shock resistance, so that if in the case of something is going to hurt your leg or your ankle, it prevents fire boots prevents you from that. If some prevents from something falling out of it. Next is SCBA. As said earlier, self-contained breathing apparatus. It is generally a oxygen filled container which you will be carrying it, like same like how the scuba divers carry the oxygen containers with them while diving. Same like people firefighters carry the SCBA on their back to prevent inhaling the toxic gases or the smoke. So it's actually an air tank with a pressure regulator and a face mask. Next comes your face shield or your goggles. These protect your eyes and upper face from intense heat and chemical splashes, flying debris, and smoke. Air protection is not used widely, but still, if it's an option. If you wanted to use, really, you could able to use it until or unless it is an required, because they are used in an extremely noisy environment such as explosions, rescue operations. If in the case of any crackers burst, you could obviously you have to wear this ear protection kit. And safety harness, when it comes to safety harness, used when working at heights like on ladders or on rooftops in the confined space like underground tunnels or tanks. High visibility test when you are getting onto the smoke or else onto the fire when you have the low light or smoky conditions, especially during the nights. Your high visibility vest is used for you to make sure you are onto the right path towards the flame. So as discussed, this is helmet and your face mask comes with your SCBA, glove, boot, your firefighting equipment. So finally getting on to the last part, conclusion. Fire and risk management is not optional, it's an essential thing for everyone to know what's happening or what should be done when it's a class. First of all, we have to find or to categorize whether it's a class A fire or class B or class D fire, whatever the classes are is, and you have to use the extinguisher accordingly. If in the case of like agents, you have to know what the material to be used. Suppose if in the case of like electrical electrocutions or electrical fires, you cannot able to use that wet cloth to prevent the fire. Even it could able to induce the fire more. So what all we've seen still so far is that prevention is the first and foremost effective step in the fire safety. So early detection systems like alarm and sensor saves the lives, so that it has to be maintained periodically. Next comes your proper use of your extinguishers or hydrants can control the fire quickly. Even if you are not trying to use the hydrants, we must know how to use the extinguishers on which fire class of fires, which fire type of fire extinguisher should be used. So PP and training are critical for safe and effective responses. Understanding fire classes and extinguishing methods, as said earlier, prevents escalation. So in an organization, effective fire risk management is a team effort. It's not about one person. Combining technology, training, planning, and quick decision making. So let's build a culture of safety where everyone knows how to prevent and react and the recover oneself and others from the fire incidents. So that's why here we are concluding with this. So any other queries or clarifications, you could able to go ahead with the queries. If so, any.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Very good evening.
Regarding the fire hydrant, what if
Sorry.
this building, the fire in the building is completely electrical? The fire is caused by electrical equipment, so we still have to use the same system, the fire hydrant, because if the fire is too big, it's impossible to use the fire extinguisher. So if the building is burning down and most of the equipment are all electrical, they will use the fire hydrant as well.
Yes, you could able to use. Sometimes you are not because fire, due to that fire amount of fire, or else the amount of pressure you are getting through the fire hydrant, you are not eligible to use the fire hydrant until or unless you pass this fire and safety management courses with an authorized governmental agencies. But if in the case of fire extinguishers, anyone could able to use the fire extinguishers, but you have to make sure you are using the exact fire extinguisher for the proper fire. If in the case of wood, if you are sitting onto the hall or which consists of your furnitures like desk or your chairs, if it is a fire is occurring over there, you could able to use the class A fire, but not on the cases like if you are getting short circuited or the fire is occurred due to any of the blast occurred in your monitor, your systems or your laptops, whatever occurred. You should not go with a class A fire. You should only go with the class B fire agents. So make sure you are using the appropriate fire agents for the particular fire what you have got through. But before to that, make sure what is the root cause of this fire. So then go ahead with the fire hydrants or your fire agents. Like
Yeah, yes.
fire hydrants are mainly used on major fire occurred areas. Like in the case of buildings, the whole building is getting fire. In such case, I cannot able to classify myself whether it is occurred due to class A fire or class B fire. I cannot able to go ahead with that because that may happen due to an electrical things also. That that time, if the fire has become the incident has become huge, that time you can use the hydrant. That time in the case of that, no issues. But make sure when you are using the hydrant, there are no people inside the building. Make sure they are evacuated safely and the hydrant has been used because even the hydrant could be able to harm the people.
Okay, clear, clear. Okay. So when we are using the hydrant, the fire must be like a measure fire.
Yeah, there is no classes for the hydrant, but you have to make sure that's the reason only the people who are authorized to use the fire hydrants, they'll be using it because when it goes on the direct contact with the people, they might get harm, they might get burns. So you have to be very cautious when using the fire hydrants until or unless you are being authorized to it.
Okay, okay. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the chat box?
Yes, sir. Regarding that file alarm system, there is a manual and automatic. I missed actually the third one. Can you go the slide again once more?
Yes, 1 second. You want all the slides to be explained?
No, only fire alarm system. There is
Fire
manual and
alarm.
automatic, right?
Yes. Manual fire alarm and automatic fire alarms.
Only two.
3. So first is your MCP, manual call
Okay.
point.
Yes.
So it is basically like you will be seeing in this. It's manually you are intimating the person who is in the FACP. Like FACP is nothing but in an big buildings or something like big construction areas like malls or water hospitals. You'll be having a fire alarm control panel over there. Like it's called as FACP.
Yes, clear.
So
And
yeah.
yeah, the next is system manual system, right? Next slide.
Manual call point is first one.
Yeah.
Second one goes on with fire alarm.
Oh, okay. Clear.
So this is the same like MCP, but this will be uh, intimating directly to FACP, same like MCP. This will be also directly intimating to FACP. But what is the difference in fire alarm comparing to MCP is that you will have some sounders and visual alarms directly. Compared to that MCP, you have to activate that MCP, then it goes to FACP, then they will be approving that alarm. Even your SOS light or sirens or horns, whatever it is, they will be approving that FACP. But if in the case of fire alarm, it is automatically, once it is found, it is considered to be as a fire, and the sounders or your visual alarms like sirens, your horns, your SOS lights, strobe lights gets in intact.
Okay, clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? So hope there is no questions over there. So with this, we are winding up this session. Thank you. Hope so. We'll be seeing you on the next session soon.